Is iRacing's version of the Mercedes AMG GT4 the closest thing to reality? We're going to find out. Before I get into the comparison video, first I want to tell you how I set the parameters. I set the time and day exactly the same to what I did in real life at the time of day during our test session at Watkins Glen International in the Mercedes AMG GT4. I also just put on the fixed sprint setup for iRacing and wanted to try it on the exact same lap. So lap 2 of my run at the test, exact same parameters. Let's see if they actually line up and how close they actually look on video. So after seeing those laps, I can say that both of them were within the same 1/10 of a second, and that is pretty unbelievable to me because it was the same lap, same conditions, same track temp, weather, everything was set the same. Of course, the setup was fixed using the iRacing Sprint Fix setup, but they drove so similar. You could see all the different types of corners, the way you struck the curb. It was very, very similar. So let's break down this video into 3 different segments. We'll let's say separate it into braking, mid-corner performance, and on-throttle performance. And you know, I just have to say, I've been using the iRacing AMG GT4 as a prep tool for my real-life races in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, and I knew going into this that they were going to be very close in terms of lap time and just the way they felt. So, so happy to report that, and doing this test will just confirm it. Let's break it down a little bit more. In terms of braking, it's really, really close. The pressure, the way you have to get onto the brake, the cadence of how you go onto the brake pedal, the peak force, everything's so similar. It feels exactly the same. Breaking it down on a more technical level, even in terms of weight distribution and how you have to have the car positioned in order to get the maximum braking efficiency, is the same. The GT4 car is very, very sensitive to body roll, especially on the front tires as you initially go on the brake pedal. So in the GT4 car on iRacing, it's very much the same. You'll notice that if you drive the car and you're just turning a little bit, then going on the brake, it doesn't slow down as much as if you have the car perfectly balanced on both front tires as you decelerate. It slows down a lot more effectively when you have the balance in the front tires. So the same thing for the real life GT4. It doesn't really like any body roll with initial brake application. And I mean, for me, that's what makes it so good as a training tool. And really, when you think about racing sims or driving sims, it all starts from braking. The brake pedal dictates how the car reacts through the corner. So for me, it's an A+. I mean, rating it out of 10, it's like a 9.5. It's nearly perfect in terms of how it feels on the sim versus real life. For mid-corner performance, the grip level's very similar. You could see just the way the car was reacting through the corner, the way I was working my hands. You can't over push the car on entry into the mid corner. The GT4 car is, at the end of the day, it's production car base. So it's very much a road car that's been massaged into a race car. So you have to always remember that. And it's quite different from the GT3 where you absolutely attack the corner and you're really hustling the car. Whereas, you know, in the GT4, you're not really attacking, you're not so aggressive, you're really backing it off, dialing down that aggression on entry and trying to keep the tires in check with the road. You don't want to slide the car too much because once you go over that threshold and you slide too much, the grip's gone. So you have to really underdrive the car, and that's probably the hardest thing about GT4 is if you're coming from a faster class car, it's really hard to dial down your aggression level and try to just drive under the limit, drive the car as if you're on a rail and not over that hard limit. So mid-corner performance is really, really close for me. Of course, the tires, I've mentioned this in my other video, my GT3 comparison. The tires can definitely be a little bit better. It feels a little numb in the middle of the corner. It's almost like you don't know where the grip is going to just cut off. So I think that with a little bit of fine tuning, just having a better feeling of where that grip drop off is, it will help so much in having a better connection to the road and just giving the driver a better feedback. Rating the mid-corner performance out of 10, I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. Like I said, with the tires, I think that there's a little bit of margin to improve, but for the most part, just for me on the brakes and getting into the middle of the corner, the level of aggression is very similar to how you would drive in real life, and for that, I think it's around a 7 out of 10. So lastly, we need to talk about the on-throttle performance, and it is actually surprisingly accurate. I couldn't believe, this is probably one of the cars in iRacing that drives as close to the GT4 as possible from sim to real life. The technique you use, getting on that throttle, opening up the throttle, and locking the differential, making the car rotate, the way it actually rotates on throttle off the corner it's wild how close they are. I couldn't believe that. I thought it was just an iRacing thing. When I got into the real car, it was so responsive to a little bit of initial throttle application. So 40-50% of throttle application, and then feeding in the rest. The car reacted so well. It actually just took it from a numb front end to a really nice rotation off the corner. If you go too much throttle application off too early, you'll get a really nice rotation, but at one point the rear just gives out, and it's very similar. It happens in iRacing. So the technique on throttle is incredibly close. It's so good for me. I'm so happy that I have this tool that I can train with, going into race weekends. I actually train with my teammate in the GT4 series before every single race, and it does translate. It shows that the hard work we put in on the sim actually plays a big role in our performance on the track. So, taking all those into account, and now the on-throttle performance, I'm going to give it like a 9 out of 10. Very, very good. Of course, the tires, that's probably the only thing. Just having a little bit more feeling for when that grip's going to go would make a huge difference in, again, driver feedback and having that connection to the game. But overall, really strong scores. I would say that, I was pretty surprised, to be honest, how good it was. And I would say it's probably one of the closest cars you can get on the simulator to the real deal. Thank you guys so much for watching that video. Hopefully it gave you a little bit of an insight as to how the GT4 drives. You know, I mentioned how close it is. Of course, it's not so easy like just driving the sim and just jumping to the real car. I think the experience that I have in the past driving various different cars across my career just helps me connect the two really, really well. And you know, it's not exactly one-to-one. Of course, there's the seat of your pants feeling you get in real life, and of course the fear factor that you would have to get over if you're not used to it. You know, I would say the biggest difference is just the shock factor on your body when you accelerate, when you hit the throttle pedal, when you hit the brakes, going into a corner at 250 or 260 kilometers an hour, and you know, trusting that the car is going to hold. It's something you can't really replicate on a simulator. It's the only way to do it and to get a feeling for that is to actually do it in real life. But of course, there are limitations, and I totally understand that. But to be honest, if you want a real life experience and you want to get as close to reality as possible, I think the Mercedes AMG GT4 on iRacing is as close as you're going to get to driving the real car. And yeah, I mean, I'm just thoroughly impressed with it, and can't wait to see the next steps that iRacing will take to improve the tires and to improve the experience. And I know that a lot of you in the comments are going to say that I'm a huge fanboy of iRacing, and that, you know, I've heard comments saying that I work for them. To be honest, I think that would be cool, but the only reason I'm saying these things is because I truly believe it actually is the best platform. There's no other reason. I don't need to do this stuff. I'm only sharing my personal experience and my personal feedback as a real life race car driver, and you know, just sharing my experience across both platforms, sim racing and real life. So before you start roasting me or trying to roast me in the comments saying that I'm in love with iRacing, the only reason I'm doing this is because I genuinely think that it is the best platform at the moment. I would love to see more competition in the future, but yeah, I mean, it's really, really cool. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, this comparison. It was a lot of fun for me, and I'm going to jump back on the sim and run some more laps getting ready for my next races. We'll see you guys in the next video. If you watched all the way to this point, I want you to say Morad go vroom again. I think it's just hilarious. You know, it's a cool way to know if you've made it to this point, and to see how many committed and loyal supporters we have on the channel already and in this community. I love it when you guys say Morad go vroom. It's just funny, and I like reading the comments. So if you have any other questions, don't be afraid to drop it down below. I'll answer as many as I can. I dedicate a lot of time to reading comments and answering them. So looking forward to seeing you guys in the comments. See you guys in the next video.